Good morning, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the FinSide with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL on Twitter, and Paul is fanatic_pick. Here we are now, and this is really it over the next two games. I mean, Paul, you and I have been really talking about these next two games, or these next three games against the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Bills to end the season, really since the Dolphins beat the Arizona Cardinals and went to 5-3. We saw that the next four games were very winnable. The Dolphins went 3-1 in that stretch, and then they lost a tough game to Kansas City, which I don't think was a big surprise. So the Dolphins are here at 8-5. So as we sit here today, the way it looks, according to the New York Post and their little calculator playoff machine there, right now, as we sit, the Dolphins have a 43% chance to make the playoffs based on the rest of the season. If they win this game, the odds jump to 63%. If they lose the game against the Patriots and fall to 8-6, the odds fall to 22% to make the playoffs here in 2020. So this is it. This is the game the Dolphins have to have.
It is, and I hate to go back to the Al Davis quote, but just win, baby. I mean, it's win and let the chips fall where they will. I mean, you want to talk about a few things. It's Miami quarterback wise, the way things stand right now, is facing Cam Newton this week, probably Marcus Mariota next week. And I'm sorry, Marcus Mariota doesn't have a lot of magic left in the tank, and I think he used it all the other night in his loss to the Chargers. And then either Josh Allen, if the Bills have something to play for, or Matt Barkley, if they don't. So Miami's defense can take advantage of these quarterbacks. Cam Newton is not the same quarterback he was in week one, and Miami's defense is not the same defense it was in week one. So there's a lot Miami can do over this three-game stretch.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And right now, the Bills are third seed in the AFC. They also have the tiebreaker over the Steelers because they took them down last week. So we could get to the final game, and the Bills have the AFC East already sewn up, which is very likely. In fact, that's probably going to happen here in a couple hours against the Broncos. But yeah, then you're right. I mean, they could start Matt Barkley because they could be thinking too, if we are facing the Dolphins next week in the first round of the playoffs, we don't want to show them anything.
Yeah, it's. I mean, people have to remember too. This year is different. The playoffs, there's only one bye week, and or one team getting that first round bye. And yeah, man, it's. I'm very curious to see what Miami can do here down the stretch. Regardless of that, like
Yeah.
it's. Um, I want to see what Miami can do against Cam Newton. Cam Newton is a shell of the week one quarterback, which was a shell of the former quarterback that he was. And I think I'm very curious to see, and I want to dive right into this because it's something that I've been like all over all week. I think X is going to really have a chance to do something special against the possible three quarterbacks that they're playing against. It's Cam Newton does not throw a good ball right now and doesn't have the receivers to throw to and has receivers that bounce it off their hands, which is something we're all too familiar with. Marcus Mariota, X can play games with him all day. That little cat and mouse game he has is so special where he fades back knowing his closing speed and just completely cuts off a receiver. And then if he's facing Matt Barkley, well, let's face it, that's not exactly a special proposition for Barkley.
Well, yeah, and they'll probably face Josh Allen in the final week, but there is a chance they could face Matt Barkley. Xavier Howard needs one interception here to be the first cornerback since 2007, which was Antonio Cromartie, to to have double-digit interceptions in a season. Other than maybe Aaron Donald, I don't want to hear anything about anybody else being a defensive player of the year candidate. I mean, to go up against these receivers in the NFL with the way that the rules are every week, and to come away with 10 interceptions while shutting down your side of the field, that to me is the hardest job in the NFL right now, besides playing quarterback.
It is, and it's. I see people mention other folks like I saw this past week one of the national pundits said it's TJ Watt and it's not even close for Defensive Player of the Year. He has 12 sacks. Like, I could probably rattle off players over the past 5 years that were right up there with him in that category. Like, it's wow. You know, you can scheme for him to get sacks. You can't scheme for a player to get double digit interceptions. I'm sorry. There's no way to scheme for that other than, you know, all right, go out and play your game and hopefully they throw at you even though you're a shutdown guy.
Yeah, TJ Watt's a phenomenal player, and I'm fine with him being third place um, there in the defensive player of the year conversation, but not first, not second. I mean, that's to me, that's Aaron Donald and Xavier Howard in whatever order, and Howard would be my choice as well. So we'll see if he gets that. But to piggyback on what you said on Cam Newton, over the last 3 games, Cam Newton has 284 yards passing in 3 games. It's astounding. And look, for the season, Cam Newton, it's the weirdest stat line. He's got 11 touchdowns on the ground and has 5 touchdowns through the air. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
Yeah, that rivals the goofy stats that we saw from Jameis Winston last year in a different way, which were, you know, the 30-30 season. It's just, you know, people can blame the wide receivers all they want, but Cam Newton is a finicky, fussy, crap starting quarterback. And I'm also curious to see, actually, just thinking about that, the end of that first week of the season, he was starting a whole bunch of stuff with the biggest guys on the Dolphins roster, and Christian Wilkins and you know, Raekwon McMillan and Emmanuel Agba. So I'm curious to see if that plays into this game.
Raekwon Davis, you mean?
Or Raekwon Davis, Jesus Christ.
Okay, got it.
I got McMillan stuffing Balaj on the brain still.
Okay.
In overtime in a game that affected Miami's playoff chances.
It did. And before we get too deep into it, Paul, here is taking a look at the playoff scenarios here too. So without going so deep into everything, basically all roads lead to Miami needing to win these next 2 games. There's no doubt about that, because if the Dolphins win 2 of their last 3 games, they need one of the following things to happen. They need one Ravens loss. The Ravens play a cupcake schedule against the Jaguars, Giants, and Bengals. That's probably not going to happen. Or the Bills have to lose all 3. That's not going to happen. The Titans have to lose all 3. That's not going to happen. They play the Jaguars this week, I believe. And then you've got 2 other scenarios, and these to me might be the 2 most likely for the Dolphins to get into the playoffs with 10 wins. Is you've got the Colts, who play against the Texans this weekend, which we'll talk about in a second too. Then they play at Pittsburgh the following weekend, and then they finish the season against Jacksonville. If the Texans can beat the Colts this weekend, they're going to be underdogs the following weekend against the Steelers, even though they're struggling a little bit. And the Dolphins could possibly win the next 2 games in that scenario, wrap up the playoffs by the end of week 16. And then you've got the Browns, who also would need to lose 2 games if nothing that I've said so far with the other teams happens. So you've got the Browns playing at the Giants this weekend. They're 6-point favorites. Then they play at New York against the Jets, which they're going to win that game. And then they play the Steelers in the final week. So again, you need 1 Ravens loss, or 2 Colts losses, or 2 Browns losses, or 3 Bills losses, or 3 Titans losses, along with 2 wins here for the Dolphins. So that's what I go back to. And for me, Paul, the most likely scenario and the most likely thing to happen for the Dolphins to make the playoffs if they go 10-6 is the Colts are out, because this weekend it's still going to be a tough game against the Texans. And then they play the Steelers the following weekend. To me, that's the best pathway for them to sew up the playoffs here by the end of week 16.
It is, and I'm going to go back to what I said before, and you know, just win, baby, just win. Like it's let the chips fall where they do. I'm proud of this team, no matter what the hell happened. I'm excited for this team. I'm excited for the future, and I do think Miami squeaks into the playoffs. There's a lot of scenarios that help that happen. But at the end of the day, the most important thing in all of it is Miami needs to win football games down the stretch.
Yeah, and those scenarios I said, if the Dolphins win the next two games, those are five unlikely scenarios that are five scenarios that are unlikely to happen to those other teams. But only one of them needs to happen. So we don't need all five. We don't need two. We need just one. So be a Giants fan here over the next 2 weeks because the Giants play the Browns this weekend and then they play the Ravens the weekend after that. If they win one of those two games, the Dolphins are looking pretty good to make the playoffs. So right now, the Dolphins are 43% to make the playoffs. If they win, they're 63%. If they win both games, they're 89% to make the playoffs heading into week 17. So a lot of things up in the air. My second part of that question, Paul, is you look at where the Dolphins are picking right now with that Texans pick. They are 7th right now heading into week 15. So question number one here is, given the playoff ramifications, who do you want to win this weekend? The Colts or the Texans?
I'm going to go. Oh, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
It's I want Micah Parsons, but I want the playoffs more. And so I'm gonna have to say the Texans. Hey, what the hell happens if they tie?
Yeah. Unlikely. So for argument's sake, we won't have that as an option. That'd be nice. But yeah, I go back and forth on this because on one hand, I say, all right, that I don't see the Dolphins getting past the first round of the playoffs, to be honest with you. I know people don't want to hear that, but you're going to go up to Pittsburgh, or you're going to go to Buffalo, or you're going to go to Kansas City likely. And it's going to be a hard game to win. If you finish 10-6 and miss the playoffs in a season like this, is that the worst thing in the world? Maybe not. But as far as the Texans are concerned, they could win that game. They're 6-point underdogs against the Colts, but right now the Dolphins have that 7th pick. The interesting thing is that pick could be as high as 4th by the end of the weekend. Now it's unlikely, but you look at, so you got the Jets, Jaguars, and Bengals who are going to be picking the top 3. 4th, the Cowboys are 4-9. And if they win against the Niners, which is very possible, they're going to fall below that Dolphins pick with the Texans, assuming the Texans lose. The Panthers play today against the Packers. Very unlikely they win. And then the Falcons are the 6th spot right now, and they pick and they play the Bucs this weekend. Probably going to lose, but very possible. So
they play the Bucs without Julio Jones this weekend.
That's right. That's right. That's correct. And it's so it's interesting. I mean, the easiest way is that the Dolphins just win their last 3 games. Texans lose them all, and the Dolphins are in the playoffs at 11-5, and the Dolphins then have the 4th or 5th pick in the draft. That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean and I know I probably upset a few people with saying I want Micah Parsons, but I had this conversation on Twitter with Rob Profit and Daniel Eliason yesterday. There's only one Micah Parsons in this draft. There is only one player of his ilk at linebacker in this draft. There are difference-making receivers up and down the board in this one. You could potentially get one late in round 1, still get Najee Harris in the beginning of round 2, and roll from there with whatever you want for the skill positions on offense. But you're not going to have an opportunity at a Micah Parsons type player very often, let alone to have them slide to the 6th, 7th, 8th spot in a normal draft, where so many teams are so goddamn quarterback hungry.
Yeah, and people throw the word generational around all the time. I may have said this last week. I believe that's the case with 2 prospects in this one, and it's aside from the quarterbacks, Micah Parsons and Penny Sewell. At those 2 positions, because I don't think they're the Dolphins' biggest need. I agree, wide receiver is the biggest need. I'm not taking Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith 8th overall. Not doing it. Okay. And for people that disagree with that, every couple of years, you see somebody like John Ross or Henry Ruggs go in the top 12 selections, and I hear, oh, this guy's different. He's special. He's unbelievable. I would rather get a different wide receiver. I mean, I'd rather take a different position and hope one of those guys falls down to 21. It's or wherever the Dolphins are going to be picking with their original pick. So yeah, I'm all out on wide receiver unless we're talking about Jamar Chase, and I'm not even completely there yet. So anyway, we can talk about the draft here in the future. It always goes back to draft talk because of these draft picks we've got here. But
Well,
um,
and actually, one thing I want to jump in on just from the chat real quick because Tommy, who happens to have the same birthday as Micah Parsons, and he's our faithful listener over in Germany, no matter what time of day it is. He was asking about Mike Gesicki's status. Mike Gesicki returned to practice on a limited basis yesterday. He was catching some passes. I really think that he's going to go this weekend. I don't know about you, Kat.
I don't. I don't think he's going to, and I'm not sure if he wants if I want him to. And will he be anything more than a decoy? Because with that shoulder, if he can't use that shoulder right, then I don't know if he's going to be able to sky high and catch those passes that makes him special. Because let's face it, you've said it before, and you're right. He can't block. He can't break tackles. He can't break tackles. Gesicki. Skying high and getting the football is the only thing that he's good at. And it's a special skill to have, probably the most important out of the tight end spot. But if he doesn't have that, what are you really getting with him?
Yeah.
I'll say this: if Gesicki can do a fraction of what he's done in the past when the ball is in the air, then absolutely I want him on the field. But if he's got something close to a separated shoulder and he's just not the same guy, I don't know. I might want to put Adam Shaheen out there, another wide receiver instead of him.
Probably. And here's the thing though too. It's if Gesicki can't do enough to impact this game, Flo don't care. He's gonna sit his ass. Like it's if he gets an inkling of that, if he throws him out there and suddenly realizes that he can't, guess what? Gesicki's gonna sit. Like it's just, I have enough faith in this coaching staff, which is refreshing to see and be able to say, to know that if a player is not going to be able to impact the game, they're not going to play him.
Yeah, and looking at the options here, I mean, I was very surprised that Gesicki practiced on a limited basis, Parker practiced on a limited basis, and so did Jakeem Grant. I did not expect those three things to happen this week, especially with Gesicki. Kyle Van Noy and Landon Roberts are expected to play in this game. You're starting to see here that this is one of the games for all the marbles. And I'm looking forward to Van Noy and Roberts getting back into the lineup because Grugier Hill and Sam Eguavoen didn't quite get the job done last week. They weren't terrible, but Eguavoen I think was worse than all of them. But I'm glad to have those two guys back in the lineup.
Yeah, and actually, the most important person that we've talked about going into this game that we really need to have out there if he can go is Bobby McCain. He is such a special player. And actually, I want to tell Kat, I don't know if you saw this, but I had an interaction this week with a Chiefs fan. And, I went to pick up a pizza or whatever. And this guy walks right over to me when he sees all my Dolphins crap, right? And we started talking about the game. On his own, he brought up Bobby McCain, which Bobby's not a household name around the NFL. And he basically said that if Bobby McCain had stayed in the game, we probably would have won. And I know everything gets impacted from there and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And he brought up the two Tyreek Hill plays when McCain was on the sideline. And he said, he's like, I had no idea who Bobby McCain was heading into this week. But you guys have a special player in Bobby McCain. Where the hell did you guys get him?
Interesting.
And that's huge. Like, and it's the same thing I know that I was saying on our post game last week. It's Tyreek Hill only scored when Bobby McCain was on the sidelines. His two big plays came in the handful of plays Bobby McCain missed. And yeah, Falalam, and I know how to pronounce his name. I'm just saying it that way. Took some bad angles on that one and some bad steps. If Bobby can't go, I want Brandon Jones back there. I don't want Fedulum to touch the damn field. outside of
Yeah,
special teams.
I'm with you on Brandon Jones there. And I also think too that if McCain doesn't go, this is one. I mean, I think having McCain out there is always a plus compared to Brandon Jones, despite we're impressed by him. He if he's gonna miss a game, then I would prefer it be this one. Very simply because the Patriots don't have receiving options, period, but they really don't have them over the top. So I think the Dolphins can really look at playing that blitz heavy, bring it to the line of scrimmage, cover zero all game, and they don't necessarily have to worry about a Tyreek Hill beating them over the top.
Yeah, no, it's I really want the cover zero. I want people up near the line of scrimmage. I want Cam to not know where he can run, and I want them to dare Cam to throw the ball. Because, like you said, no one's going to beat you over the top from this team. They're going to throw a lot of little wide receivers, screen, pump and dumps. Their tight ends are not effective guys, and their wide receivers are mediocre at best. And their offensive line is dealing with a lot of injuries too. So you have a chance, if you blitz, to really be able to make it effective this week, going up against the Pats, who's who and who's where along that offensive line.
Yeah, and when you compare this matchup to week one, the Patriots against the Dolphins in week one, 42 carries, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. And I said at the time that, when everyone was saying, oh, we just got punched in the mouth today, and the Dolphins defense did in week one. The caveat to that was you have a brand new defense, new defensive coordinator, basically seven new starters on the field, and you have no film on Cam Newton. You have no idea what Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels are going to have planned for Cam. I don't think they expected him to basically just run an extended version of the Wildcat with Cam Newton in week one. That's what they did. And when you look at now week 15, because the Patriots can't throw the ball, that's probably their only option to have success against the Dolphins here.
Yeah, and I'll go so far as to say this: the defense took a little bit to come together. We had a lot of new players and new roles, and that were figuring each other out. Honestly, I think if we had had a preseason, Miami takes 2 of those games that they lost early, including the Patriots game, where they got a chance to see a little bit of Cam and how he's going to be used in the preseason. They wouldn't have seen everything, but I think they would have been able to smack the Pats. And I really think they would have had a chance against the Seahawks, because that was a close game as it was. The Seahawks knew who they were. Miami didn't.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to go back to on that too is Miami, they allowed over 200 yards rushing in that first game. Miami hasn't allowed, or barely allowed, 200 yards rushing over the last 3 games. They're a whole different defense now, like you alluded to.
You bet. You've got, the Patriots ran for 217 yards in the first game, right around 220 in the last 3 games. So yeah, you're right. I mean, they've tightened up. And last week, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's averaging close to 5 yards a carry on the year heading into the game last week, 16 carries, 32 yards. It is hard to run against that 3-man front of Wilkins, Zach Sealer, and Raekwon Davis. So that's really their only shot. But I will say this too: one thing that the Patriots didn't have in week one, it was Damian Harris. And this is a running back I have a lot of respect for, because when he's on the field, he's averaging 5 yards a carry. The window for the Patriots to win is to be able to say, okay, we're going to run Cam Newton a lot. We're going to run Damian Harris a lot. And we're going to try to play spoiler here by winning this game 16-13. Otherwise, offensively, I just don't see how they're going to get anything going.
I don't either. I mean, it's their best chance in this one is read option with those two. Make the defense hopefully make a bad decision if you're a Pats fan. Hopefully make a good decision if you're a Fins fan. If you can knock Cam Newton out of the game for Jarrett Stidham, whether it's performance or just getting a few helmets on him, and obviously I don't mean helmets, I don't want penalties and blah, 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 blah. But you can really have a chance for your secondary to feast if you can force Jarrett Stidham into this game. They pulled Cam last week. It wouldn't be unrealistic to see it happen again this week.
We actually had our Pats correspondent Derek Havens do our opponent preview again, here yesterday, and that he wants Jared Stidham in there the rest of the year because
He should.
Patriots have a 4% chance to make the playoffs. What are you going to do with Cam Newton after the year? And he actually went a step further instead. He wanted Stidham to play quarterback all year because now here the Patriots are. They're 6-7, probably going to win 6 or 7 games on the year. They're going to be picking outside of the top 10, and now you're going to have to trade up if you want a quarterback. So that makes a lot of sense there. And yeah, but Newton is somebody that is just getting worse and worse as the season goes along, and not a surprise given that he runs the ball 10 to 15 times a game and craves contact.
Yeah, his big claim to fame is being God, I forget who said this, but a defensive end playing quarterback. It's and Miami's got some big boys up front. I mean, I think the development of Raekwon Davis and the elevation of Zach Sealer and the play of Christian Wilkins is going to be probably the most critical thing in this game. That is such a huge difference from week 1 of this season. I really think the way they've been able to hold the point of attack and then get the push up field and really play laterally too is so critical for everything that Miami does on defense, and let some of these other players do some really cool special things, especially with that blitz package from the cover zero like we talked about already.
Sure, yeah. And Davin Gotcha was playing defensive tackle in week 1. Gotcha is a decent player, but he doesn't offer the size against the run I think that's needed to go in this matchup. And so also 2 other things to keep an eye on defenses. Like you said, they've had some injury problems on their offensive line. Yeah, that's true. And the big one is Isaiah Wynn, who completely shut down the left side of the line in the Dolphins week 1 matchup. He's on injured reserve. He's been replaced by Jermaine Illuminor over the last several weeks. And Illuminor's done a pretty decent job, but he's also very questionable for this game. He missed practice on Thursday. So he may not play, and I think then you get down to Corey Cunningham at left tackle, and he's a backup at best. At right tackle, Michael Onwenu from Michigan, the rookie, has done a great job for them. Rest of their line is pretty good, but the Dolphins, I think, are going to have a lot more success in this one, bringing 4 or 5 in passing situations and still being able to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I'm actually looking for a big game from Van Ginkel in this one. I really think, especially with him coming off the right side a lot in various places, I really think he's going to give them fits with their backup left tackle, and he's going to be coming from Cam's blind side. And the guy is overdue for a big play with the number of just big game-changing plays he's had this year, and the fact that he hasn't had that game-changing play in the past couple weeks. Really, he's overdue. He's overdue for him, and
yeah,
he's big and strong enough to wrestle Cam to the ground on his own.
Yeah, he certainly is. And when you look at the other side of the football too, the thing that scares me, that terrifies me in this game is Bill Belichick against rookie quarterbacks. I mean, we saw a couple of weeks ago, Justin Herbert shut out against him 45-0. And Bill Belichick is 9-0 against the last 9 rookie quarterbacks he's faced. The last one to actually beat Bill Belichick as a rookie was Geno Smith back in 2013. So I still say in this game that it's going to be tight. I also think as well that the Dolphins, if this is a 7-0, 14-7 Patriots lead at any time, it might be hard to come back against the Patriots here because, I mean, this is still one of the best secondaries in the league. You just look at their last 3 games against Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, and Jared Goff. 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions against those 3 quarterbacks, and a combined 41 points allowed in those 3 games too. So it is really important that the Dolphins maintain a lead in this.
It is. And, I think they can. I really do. I think the Pats offense is going to struggle to move the ball. And I was just thinking while you were talking about, in relation to something I just said, Raekwon Davis got asked this week about tackling Cam Newton because he's such a big, strong guy at quarterback. And Raekwon Davis said, any NFL player can tackle any NFL player. He goes, I got and Raekwon basically said, he goes, I got tackled by a diminutive quarterback when I picked up a fumble one time in college. He goes, and you know how big I am. So yeah, there's no difference in tackling Cam Newton than there is in tackling a Marcus Mariota or whoever.
And, and the big difference from week one is Cam Newton was coming in motivated, pissed off, and ready to prove people wrong. And he had 15 carries for 75 yards, took a lot of hits, and he's taken a lot of hits for the last 14 weeks. He's not at that spot anymore. He's been battling, I believe, a rib injury, but some injury with his midsection all year. And he can't sacrifice his throwing motion. He already does that. And now that he's having some injury problems and it's getting later in the season, he looked bad against the Rams. I mean, the Rams defense had 7 sacks against him. They scored 3 total points in offense. They just flat out were not ready to play. So this is it. I mean, you look at the next 2 games. To me, the Dolphins have at least a top 3 defense in the league. I would even put them at number 1, given that there's no dominant defense. They face, at least for the next 2 weeks, Cam Newton and Marcus Mariota. This is what you paid that money for in the secondary for 2 games like this.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something else you said too about Bill Belichick versus rookie quarterbacks. It's Shake makes a decent point in our chat about ESPN bringing up that the rookies are on bad teams. I'm going to go a step further with the Justin Herbert game. Anthony Lynn is probably one of the most atrocious coaches that won't be fired this offseason. He runs such a basic offense, defense, and you name it, that I'm pretty sure Bill Belichick, given a week or 2 to prepare, could take any team, any roster in this league and beat an Anthony Lynn coached team. And that includes Anthony Lynn's own team. It's Anthony. What the Chargers have done is so simplistic that I can literally see in my head Bill Belichick laughing watching game film because it's such an ABC repeat offense, such an ABC repeat defense where they don't disguise anything. They just go, we're going to play our game, and we've got some talented people, and sometimes it's going to work, and sometimes it's going to blow up in our face. And my adjustment to that is to go, keep doing it. Like,
Yep, right.
It's horrible. It's horrible, and it's offensive to watch a Chargers game right now.
It is, and the ultimate evidence of what you just said there is whether it's Kalen Ballage and Josh Kelly or Austin Eckler, who are, Austin Eckler is a completely different type of running back. He's somebody you get in space. He's somebody who should be catching 80 passes a year, and you use him like Kalen Ballage. Yeah, you need to get fired, and I absolutely think he will get fired here at the end of the year, unless the Chargers, maybe get to 7-9, which I don't see happening either. So, but you're right, is one thing that separates the Dolphins is, for as much as we've said about Chan Gailey, I thought Chan Gailey called a hell of a game last week. I really do. And the reason for it is because there was more no huddle. There was more wide receivers in motion, more unpredictability. And it's got to stick that way, because that's the only way you're going to go against a Patriots defense and keep them on their toes.
Well, and here's the thing with that. Chan Gailey was quoted this week, and I don't have the exact quote in front of me, with basically saying that they tried a few things in that Chiefs game that he didn't think Tua was ready for, and Tua showed that he was. And that was something that you and I have both said at various points during the season since Tua took over, that we thought Chan was going to start out with this little bubble of here's what you do and here's where we're going to stay until you get really good at that. And then we're going to add this layer around that bubble of, all right, now here's the whole realm of what we're going to do. I think he's starting to really open that up for Tua, and it couldn't come at a better time. So I think there's going to be some things we see this week that the Patriots won't be expecting. And another factor, because we just talked about the coaching aspect with Anthony Lynn and Bill Belichick, is Brian Flores knows Bill Belichick as well as anybody. And Brian Flores has always done a good job of scheming to beat those coaches that a lot of people think are unbeatable. He helped carry the Patriots through the playoffs a few years ago, given the scheme that they put in place on defense. He solved in conjunction with and even more so in conjunction with Josh Boyer. But before that, he solved the Rams' offense that no one else seems able to. He has carried teams to fight with the Chiefs over the past few years when they dominate everybody. And if anybody can, buck the trend against Bill Belichick, I feel like it's Brian Flores. Not all of his former coaches can say that, but I think Brian Flores has a chance to be that guy.
And the other side of that too is Bill Belichick knows Brian Flores very well. So that's why it's going to be a very good matchup here. And I think at the end of the day, even if the Patriots get Julian Edelman back in this, I don't think that's enough to make anywhere close to a difference. I mean, Edelman had 5 catches for 80 rushing and receiving yards last game against the Dolphins. He was probably their best player on offense that day, besides Cam Newton running the ball. So, yeah, it's we'll see. I mean, the big thing here with Tua, and this is, I do not want to be at the end of this game saying, all right, the Dolphins lost a game where they were Belichick outsmarted Tua. He got the better of a rookie quarterback again. I understand what they were saying in the chat, and I get that, but Belichick has been throughout his career better against younger quarterbacks. That's a fact. I do not want it to, at the end of the game, saying, okay, we're heading into 2021, not in the playoffs, and in a division where you're going to be going up against Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, and Bill Belichick on the 3 different teams for the next couple of years. This is a very important game, and it's a very big test for Tua.
It really is. And I'm excited to see how much Chan opens that playbook for him this week, given what we saw from Tua last week. I really am. It's because there's a lot of special, little things that we saw potentially last week that could come to fruition this week. And, that includes the Philly special that they almost ran with Tua, but Lynn didn't throw it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they tried that twice, and I like seeing that, and that's why I think you need to have Malcolm Perry and Lynn Bowden available and out there as that threat, because if you do that even once every couple of games, there's that threat when other teams look at game tape throughout the week. So Lynn Bowden had a really exciting game last week. And I hope that continues here this week. What'll be fascinating to see is how healthy are Gesicki, Parker, and Grant going to be? And then the second part of it, does it matter? And I say that because when Gesicki, Parker, and Grant went down last week, and you had these, second and third stringers in there with Lynn Bowden being basically your best receiver, that's when Tua put together his 3 best drives of the game. I don't. My theory on that is he wasn't thinking as much, this guy's good at that, this guy's good at that, got to throw the ball high and away to this guy. Just hit the open guy. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm a little torn. I think maybe some of it was that, but I think some of it too is not so much Tua thinking it. I think it goes back to Chan Gailey, because Chan started doing things, like I said before, towards the end of that game that he wouldn't have done with his starters in there. He wouldn't have done with Devontae and Jakeem in there. And I want to see him start doing those things, especially now that he saw Tua's actually ready for those. It's given the fact that he was down to, backup tight ends and backup receivers and this and that. I really think he opened up the playbook trying to make something happen. I really, truly do. And I hope he doesn't close it back up, because that is a recipe for Miami to be less exciting.
You bet. And finally, before we get to our predictions here, the last thing on offense is very important. Myles Gaskin gets back on the field and in that starting role here this week. Last week against the Patriots defense, Cam Akers, a rookie we were very high on before the draft, has been coming on lately. 171 yards rushing against the Patriots last week. And when I asked Derek Havens about that, he said it was just simple execution. There was no problem with the scheme. Just, the Rams just punched him in the mouth. I mean, so being able to balance that out with Myles Gaskin is going to be very, very important in this, because you look back at last week against the Chiefs. I mean, the Dolphins scored 10 points in the first 52 minutes of the game, largely because, in my opinion, they weren't balanced enough. I mean, couldn't run the ball. Dwayne Washington, Patrick Laird out there, I think they averaged right over 4
DeAndre.
yards a carry. What I say?
DeAndre.
Dwayne?
Yeah, you did.
God. I really try not to mess names up. And I can't get over that. But it's all right. He'll probably be released pretty soon anyway, so I won't have to worry about that. I don't know. Maybe not. They traded for him. But
Now, I want to go back, though, to that running back thing. And before I do, guys, make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribing if you're listening. We really appreciate the feedback we've gotten from everybody this week. Give us as many comments as you like. We actually really enjoy reading those, good, bad, or indifferent. But the other guy I want to talk about here with the running game is, I love Myles Gaskin. I've liked Myles Gaskin since they drafted him out of Washington. But I think after watching Cam Akers last week, I don't think that Gaskin is the running back that has the best opportunity in this one. I think Savon Ahmed would be even better against this Patriots defense as far as the execution goes, because of the speed with which he hits those holes once he makes that decision and once the block is there. And that was one of the big factors watching Cam Akers against the Patriots, was he went and he hit it a million miles an hour and busted through. And I think Ahmed, who did return to practice in limited role, is the guy that fits the mold a little bit better for running wild against the Pats offense.
That's a good observation. And because Ahmed and Cam Akers, their running style is very, very similar. Where Gaskin is more of somebody who offers a lot of versatility, breaks a little more tackles, but is not quite the downhill runner that Akers and Ahmed are. Matt Breida is also going to return, and time's kind of running out on him. He's got 3 games left. The Dolphins traded a 5th rounder for him. He'll be a free agent after the year, but that'll be fascinating to see who is going to step up other than Gaskin this year among the 5 running backs on the roster.
Yeah, so far Breida does a really good job of getting tackled really fast.
Getting hurt.
Yeah, he's the fastest guy to get tackled and injured that I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's got some speed to him, and I'm still waiting for that to come into fruition here.
Well, that's why he does it so quickly.
He quickly runs into the hole and fumbles. That's he only had, what do you have, 1 or 2 this year, not just 1. But yeah, it's hard to, when you're getting injured and you're somewhere among 5 running backs on the roster, and it's hard to stake your claim sometimes. So we'll see what happens here among the running back spot. Paul, what is your bold prediction of the game, and what is your score prediction here this Sunday, Dolphins versus Patriots?
Ooh.
I love when you say "ooh," like you just have no idea the question's coming.
No, I do, but I've been floating back and forth between so many different things with this, and my bold prediction in this one is Xavier Howard puts a nail in the Cam Newton experiment for this week and sends Cam Newton to the bench with his first interception. And then once Jarrett Stidham gets in there, it turns into a bloodbath. And I think X picks off Cam Newton in the second quarter, and we see Stidham for the whole second half. And I think X gets to Stidham 2 times in the second half. I think Stidham turns into a chuck and duck against this Miami front 7, and X becomes the beneficiary and locks up DPOY with a 3 interception game himself. Let's go with that, which sounds ridiculous, but it's not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know if anything with X is ridiculous now. So my bold prediction in this one is going to be that Jerome Baker had 2.5 sacks last week, and it's clear they need to send him to the quarterback more, and there's no better opportunity for them to do that than in this game. I see him getting 2 sacks again, and having 7 on the year, and being one of the leaders, if not the leader, as the stand-up linebacker in the sack department. Uh, Meaning he'll start to get a little bit more notoriety here throughout the year, throughout the rest of the year. My score prediction in this here is, and I'll throw it back to you after that, is I've been going back. I've honestly been going back and forth all week because I think this is going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tight game, and it could be a grinded out affair here. I've been going back and forth, 16-13 Patriots, 16-13 Dolphins. What the heck? I'm going to be optimistic here in week 15, and I'm finally pushing myself over the 9-7 threshold and saying the Dolphins get to 10 wins here at 1 week from today against the Raiders. They win this game 16-13.
I think I'm mostly in agreement with you, but I can't say Miami gets as many turnovers as I said, and not think it's going to be a little bit broader differential. I'm going to go 35-12 Miami in this one.
35 points. That'd be something else if that were to happen.
If Chan keeps the playbook open, I think it's possible.
I think I said before week 1 when I was talking to Derek on their podcast that I felt the Dolphins on paper were better than the Patriots. I know they are now, and we're seeing too throughout the year that they are the better football team too. The Patriots do have it within them though to win those 23-17, 20-17 games. They did it against quality opponents this year. They did it against the Cardinals. They did it against the Ravens just here in the last 5 weeks. So I expect it still to be a pretty close game. But anything else jump out in chat there?
We just got asked how much cheating we think Belichick's going to get away with, and I was typing a response. I don't think he's got the personnel to truly get away with that right now.
I could do a whole show on that.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the personnel to get away with a lot of that anymore. And he doesn't have the clout this season to pull some things off that he would have with these guys, they're probably right.
I know everyone will disagree with me. I believe the Patriots cheat just as much or slightly a little bit more than every other team in the league. And nobody else can convince me otherwise. I think everything else is media-made bullshit. Sorry, but hey, luckily now the Patriots aren't that good. So we can finally say we're just better than them now. And
Kyle Van Noy would agree with you on the media stuff. So
and this game would put the nail in the coffin here. If the Dolphins win this game, they are guaranteed a winning season, and the Patriots, for the first time since 2000, are guaranteed to not have a winning season. So that's what we have to look forward to here this Sunday. It's going to be a great game, and there are a lot of great games as we get closer here to the end of the year. That's going to do it for our breakdown of the Dolphins Patriots matchup here for week 15, 1 p.m. Eastern time. You can follow Paul and I on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and on Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is Fanatic_Pick. If it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side.